CGC cards have finally opened up submissions for JSA autograph authentication. This is a pretty big deal for the hobby, in my opinion. I think PSA should be concerned, so stay tuned for my thoughts on that. I'll basically talk you through the news, talk you through the pricing, and then talk you through a submission I've just sent in. Literally, as soon as this news broke, I sent it in because I have a card that the hobby is telling me is fake, an autograph on there that is fake, that is from Upper Deck. So I'll unpack each of those things for you today. Just bear with me and we'll get into it as always. Now, like I said, CGC Cards have announced their partnership with JSA. So JSA being James Spence Authentication, one of the biggest, autograph authentication agencies in the world, if not the biggest. I could be wrong on that, but from what I've gathered, they are, the creme de la creme. Now, CGC parent company acquired James Spence Authentication earlier on in the year, and they actually opened up this service for comic books. They're just now getting to cards. They basically said they wanted to try it out on the comic book perspective first. And I think it's awesome because it basically means now if you have an in-person autograph on a card, you can send it to them and they're actually going to, grade it, slab it, and also check the authenticity of the autograph itself, which is a huge thing because historically they weren't doing that. They'd basically say, we can't look at that kind of card. You're going to have to send it elsewhere kind of thing. So number one, it's really good for them because they're now able to generate more business, but it's good for us as collectors because it's another service offering. BGS and PSA are currently offering this service for card collectors, but they each have very significant issues with how it actually operates. And, James Spence being as big as what it actually is, to sort of have this partnership now in place, I think is amazing. And there's a few other benefits I want to talk to in comparison to PSA specifically, which I'll get to, in a sec. So in terms of how the differences look between, the slabs currently versus what the CGC Cross JSA ones are, it will say authentic autograph there in the top right, and then also say CGC Cross JSA over there. Now, you can read this article for yourself. It's just a press release mumbo jumbo crap that you usually see in things like these from companies, but they do a pretty cool job in my opinion, and they look great in their slabs. I'm a big fan of CGC. They're my preferred grader for the time being because I think they provide collectors with the most value, but it's one of those things for you guys to make up your own mind. But at a minimum, I think this is a huge win for collectors to have a point of difference, right? Another company offering something like this that can actually put pressure on the likes of PSA because CGC, they're a sleeping giant. They have so much money. They've got such a big name from a comic book perspective. They already did a fantastic job with their signature series, which if you're not sure what that is, basically they would hold events, right? Signing sessions. They have an employee there that would oversee them or a third party associated with them. And you'd send your thing in, they'd oversee the fact that the thing was signed, and then they'd go ahead and slab your card. And they'd put it in those cool signature series, yellow labels. So that was already a point of difference for them, something that they run themselves to give collectors an opportunity to get something authenticated. But now that they can do this in partnership with James Spence, it is amazing, right? Because they're huge, right? CGC is being slept on purely from a comic book perspective as well. They're so huge. They're basically the PSA of comic books. And now they're doing stuff like this. So PSA should be concerned. Again, I'm rambling. I'll share more thoughts in a second. In terms of the pricing model, it's not actually too bad. So these are the pricing over here if you're not paying to be a member. Basically, you can pay to be a member with CGC to get grading discounts, and that's broken down over here. But what these fees are is essentially above and beyond what you're already paying to get your card, graded or authenticated by them. So if it's the $15 economy one, or I think it's $14 now, it's going to cost you $34 to sort of get that plus an autograph graded. If I'm correct, I think it says it a bit better over here. Grading fee plus $15, and those are the other fees there based on whether you're an associate or an elite member. But I think this is amazing for a few reasons, and I've not been able to find the specific answer on this just yet. But one of the problems is if you send something like this into PSA as an example, and they say the autograph is not genuine, or there's an issue with it, they are not going to refund you the money. They're still going to charge you, which people have always, scratched their heads at. It happens when they grade a card as not authentic as well, because people will say, well, okay, yes, you've spent the time as a business looking at this thing, but you haven't slabbed it. So why are you taking all my money? Why is it not partial? But what CGC does with cards, and I'm assuming they're going to do the same thing with autographs, is they'll refund the customer in that instance. So I had some cards in my last submission that were unable to be graded because they were too small for their casing, and they gave me my money back. PSA would not have done that. They would have kept the money. So, that's one win here for collectors as well. But they also mentioned, and I can't remember where exactly it is, it might be on the FAQ page, you're basically going to get graders notes alongside this as well. So if a card fails, the autograph authentication, like they've basically come out and said, well, this Mickey Mantle is not genuine, they're going to tell you why. And one of the issues that PSA do that I actually spoke about, over 2 years ago now, is not disclosing it. PSA will just give them, like an N7 tag in there, I believe it is, or N9. And you have to go to their website to find what those codes mean, but they won't tell you exactly why the thing didn't pass authentication. Whereas, what CGC is talking about, as an example, is giving you clear insights in terms of graders notes for why your thing failed, which is really important transparency that we need in this space. And I'm sort of keen to hear what you guys have to say down below. And this goes to what I said a little bit earlier, where you've got all these people, getting, autographs authenticated by PSA. And we spoke about it recently with that huge issue where they basically authenticated an autograph and then, 3 months later changed their mind on the thing. It seems a bit wishy-washy, and the amount of money they're charging in terms of upcharges and all that kind of thing is just a mess. CGC is not doing that. So the fact that they're not only going to sort of match the service offering we're getting from PSA in terms of the quality of work, they're actually exceeding it, in my opinion. They're charging you less for it, and they're going to refund you if they've made a mistake, and they're going to be more transparent about the whole process. It's like, PSA, you need to lift your game. And this is why it's really good for collectors, because we're getting, more value. You sort of had companies in this space like BGS and PSA for so long absolutely take the piss with, the value they give us, right? The customer service they give us, because they can, because nobody's there to challenge them. But CGC is doing that now, and I think this is going to blow up in PSA's face, in my opinion. These guys are, pretty damn big, and they're not really a sleeping giant because they're bigger than a giant, if that makes sense. I don't know what other analogy to use, but they're huge, right? And they're going to start getting more people buying into what it is they're doing. And, you guys might say, well, PSA stuff sells for more. That's fine. Use them if you want to make your money. But if they can sort of make inroads and actually, really impress people that chase autographs, right? And there are guys in PSA, like we saw in that video with the autograph thing that I just mentioned. I'll put it on screen. There's people there that use their set registry, and they're so into PSA, and they're such big fanboys of it because they like the value in and around of getting things, authenticated. And it's a big deal, right? Especially with vintage collectors. But PSA slowly pissed these people off. You've now got CGC coming in and probably going to offer them a heck of a lot more value, and it's cheaper. So you're going to get these guys slowly buying in my opinion, unless PSA, changes their thoughts. But maybe I'm too much of a CGC fanboy. I try not to be, but I just really like what it is they're doing, because they have the best grading guarantee. Whilst it's not, foolproof, it's still better than what anyone else has. They refund you stuff if they don't grade it. And now they're doing stuff like this. I just think it's super cool. And for someone like me, like I sort of mentioned in the intro, that's really going to help me in this particular instance, because this Alien Anthology card that I bought from a card show here in Sydney about a month ago, I was super excited about. And then I make the post and people say, well, this Ian Holm autograph is known to be fake. I'm like, well, what do you mean? It's an upper deck thing. Don't you think they would have, overseen that? As we know, these these card companies don't always, monitor these signing sessions and all that kind of stuff. Did a bit more digging, and it turns out, it's true. There are some question marks around this. I sent it into BGS and they failed it in terms of the quick opinion. Didn't want to send it into them because I'm like, what? This CGC and JSA thing is coming up. I'm just going to send it to them once it opens. It's opened, I'm sending it in, and I'm really keen to see what they say, because talking to, other collectors out there that are specifically focused in on autograph authentication, they've basically told me that JSA has, the biggest repository, the biggest references, the biggest exemplars when it comes to, autograph authentication. Like they're chalk and cheese compared to what PSA and BGS do. They're head and shoulders above them. And I'm only going off what they're saying to me, but that's what I want to try and lean on, because if they're going to say it's authentic, I'm going to believe them. And if they're going to say it's not authentic, I'm going to believe them. Whereas if I sent it into BGS or PSA, they'd probably tell me it's fake and not tell me why. But I get the feeling I'm not going to go through that process with JSA. And again, the fact that all these people that I talk to praise JSA from an exemplar perspective and say, their database is the best, they're the best at what they do. The fact they're now being able to get cards slabbed and added into CGC set registry is, I think, another quick win, another big win for them. And one of those things that could change sentiment in this hobby really quickly in terms of customers that are actually using CGC. You've got people literally going to PSA because they have the set registry and because they will slab your cards. But if all those people that I'm talking to are talking about the fact they like JSA better, now that CGC can also slab them, what do you think is going to happen? I think they're going to slowly come over, and that is a good thing for the hobby, because we need more diversity in people's opinions of what they value. And we sort of need these companies to be held more accountable too, because like I showed in that video from 2.5 years ago, PSA will, just look at your cards, they'll reject them for no reason, and then they'll charge you the money for it. And, you know, one of the other things I forgot to mention that I did talk to in that video is, you know, you can have many examples, and I talked to that in the video, where you've got people going to signing sessions and getting Larry Bird to sign something, right? They've got photo evidence that Larry Bird signed that card for them. They then send it into PSA, and because PSA don't want to take the risk on a high profile order, they'll reject it. And that's happened a lot, and there's many, many examples of that, but they'll still charge you. And that's one of the big problems that I talked to in that video. That stuff happens all the time. So again, it is what it is. I'm rambling. I hope you guys, you know, liked the video. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.